another tutorial video. Today's one is in conjunction with Tonic Craft Kit number 69, which is the Whimsical Wonderland, which is a beautiful die set that has gorgeous, really whimsical kind of trees. You can create all sorts of different houses, you've got gingerbread men, all sorts of different things in the die set. And we're mainly going to be focusing on the stamp set for this tutorial, showing you how to create an overall stamped background and different ways of how you can sort of finish it off to create your card. If you like colouring, you can do a coloured version, or if you don't like colouring, you can still use this kind of technique and create a different sort of version for your cards. Also, within this month's Tonic Craft Kit, you're getting a selection of different Nuvo products. You're getting an ink pad, which is the Acorn brown, which is what we're going to be using to stamp our images. You're also getting a glitter marker, some glitter accents, some vintage drops, and mica mist as well, which I've used all of them on these two different cards actually, so we can show different ways of how to use these different elements to accent some of these stamped images as well, and I'll show you that as we finish all of the stamping and everything. So let's start by taking our piece of cardstock, and we're going to want to create this overall kind of background. When I was making this one, I kept putting a second piece of cardstock back over the top of the first piece to get the stamps in the same position so I could create two backgrounds, and actually I've used one of them up the other way than how I had originally stamped them. So the great thing about doing these kind of backgrounds, flipping images upside down, is that it kind of creates a patterned paper kind of idea, so it doesn't matter which way up you use it, which is really nice. And I'll show you just how easy this is to do without dropping a stamp and like messing up the progress you've already created. And how I do this is I take a piece of acetate. This is one of the pieces that comes from the stamp storage pockets that Tonic do, that have the little 6x6 kind of sleeve, and they have the pieces of acetate in there. So it's a lovely thick piece of acetate that already has some gorgeous rounded corners, but obviously you can just use whatever acetate you have. And on the top here I've written stamp on this side. So the reason why I did this is, obviously acetate is clear and you can't always tell which side the ink is on, so I thought if I write stamp on this side, as long as I can read stamp on this side when I place it down, I know that all of the ink is going to be on this side of the acetate and this side is going to be clean, so I'm not going to mess up my project that way. And you'll see how this comes in handy once we've done the first set of stamping and we want to move all of our stamps. We can place this over the top of our background, place our stamps in the perfect position, pick them up with the lid of our stamping platform, and then remove the acetate and stamp them onto our cardstock. So it's a really helpful kind of tool to have if you haven't already got something like this in your stash. But literally just a piece of acetate with some writing on is perfect. So to begin with, I'm going to take my stamping platform and put my piece of cardstock more towards the middle, because we want the pattern to fall off all of the edges, rather than you know, butting it up to the edge here. Then we can't get a half image, we can only get full images unless we keep moving our cardstock around. So I tend to just move it into the middle, and we're going to start by filling this top section with a lot of the stamps, so we can hold it down in the bottom areas with some of these gorgeous Tonic bar magnets. I absolutely love these magnets, they are so useful. I also use the small circles on here as well, but they're so useful. So we're going to start with a lot of these different stamped images. So we've got two different gingerbread people. So we've got a little gingerbread lady, then we've got a candy cane, we've got a little like jelly top kind of design, we've got a pinwheel sort of circle, we've got a little biscuit with icing on, we've got this little snowflake kind of design, we've got the other gingerbread person, and then we've also got this gorgeous little sweet as well. And we have the second candy cane as well. So we've got candy canes going in two different directions. And you don't want to think about this too much. Just place them all down to begin with. So they're all nice and close to each other. Just, you know, putting them as close as they can go with the outside photopolymer that's on the stamps, and just place them down as they are. Move the magnet a bit closer so it's going to hold it down nicely. Then pick them all up with the lid of whatever stamping platform you like to use. I know Tonic don't really sell the Tim Holtz one anymore, so I'm just using a different one in the video. But you can just ink up all of your images, and we're using the Acorn brown ink, so I am going to stamp it twice because I like a nice solid impression. And the great thing about using the Acorn brown ink to do these backgrounds, and especially if you were doing more than one of them, you know, keep putting another piece of card, lining it up exactly where you've got this piece and stamping these pieces before you move on to the next ones as well. The great thing about using the hybrid ink is you don't have to have decided what you want to colour with first. So we could colour with alcohol pens, we could colour with normal coloured pencils, we could colour with watercolour pencils, we could just colour with basic watercolours as well. Anything that you want to colour with will work really nicely with this ink, which is lovely. So we've got our first lot of images down. Now we want to put another magnet over the top of that so it's holding that end of the cardstock down. And then as we move down the rest of the card, we want to put our stamp on this side facing up, piece of acetate over the top, hold it down with a magnet as well so it's going to stay where we've put it. And then this is the beauty of this, we don't have to clean these because we're putting them onto the acetate. We can see where we're lining things up, but we don't have to clean them before we put them down, because normally I would try and put the stamp down and then you know, inevitably, because photopolymer stamps are gorgeous and like sticky, and that's how they stamp so lovely, they always catch on your finger, don't they? You try and put them back down again and they'll catch on your finger and pull back up, so then you'll make a little inky mark on your piece of paper. But if you put your acetate down first, you can then take all of your images and place them onto here and make sure you're moving them to different areas. So the little male gingerbread man is over there, so I'm going to put him over here this time. He was upside down there, so I'll put him more of the right way up this time. And make sure you sort of mix them around, put the different candy canes in different areas, bring the different sweets to different areas. So that sweet is over there, I want to fill in that tiny gap there, so I'm going to put the sweet there, and you can see how that was sticking to my fingers. It doesn't matter because I'm putting it onto the acetate, not onto my actual card, so it doesn't matter if you move it around. Then let's go with the one that's under here is the gumdrop. So let's put the gumdrop down here to fill in a bit of this gap here. Then let's take another candy cane and bring this around here. Let's go with the little biscuit, the iced biscuit, and put that there. Then we go with the lady gingerbread man and tilt her at a different angle to how we've got some of the other ones. We can come back in with this circular kind of sweet. We've got the little snowflake. It doesn't matter if there are gaps within this design as we're placing these down, because we can easily go back over the top as well. And then another candy cane. Let's bring this one off the side here. Then once you've got those all in the perfect positions where you want them, put the lid back down, pick them all up. Oh, that one didn't quite catch. Whoops, still not going to catch. I'll just put that one on, I think. It's because that magnet was in the way, it wouldn't let it go down far enough, but we'll just check that's in a good position. Yes, it is. So there we go. Now we can remove our acetate, which is now dirty with some of the excess ink from some of our stamps, and we can move that out of the way. And then we can ink these ones up and stamp them down, and they're going to fill in those gaps perfectly. And if you've done multiples before you move the stamps, you could then keep putting multiple pieces of card back in here to do this next set of stamps as well, which is how I got two identical ones when I was doing my original card. So we can stamp those down. I think that's all stamped nicely. Then we can move our magnets around again so they're holding down the best areas of our background. Then we can put our acetate back on top again. Again, hold that down with a magnet. We'll go over the top of that gingerbread man to hold it down. Then we want to decide what elements we need to bring over. So we don't want another one of these here because it's already there. So maybe let's bring that cookie or the biscuit back over and put that there. Then this little snowflake image, we could bring that one over here as well. Then again, we've got the gingerbread man on this side this time, so let's put the gingerbread lady on this side again, and let's put her in a different orientation to any other way she's been on the background. Then what about the long little sweet? We could put that over here maybe to fill in that gap nicely. We've got this gorgeous swirl again. Now there's nothing just coming off that side, so let's put that there maybe. And the little gumdrop again as well. Then we could put another candy cane, making sure that's not the same candy cane that we've got just there, but we could put that maybe coming in this kind of direction, and we've left a space here for what we can move one of those other ones around into that space, perhaps that biscuit next time. And then we can go another gingerbread man, and maybe put him down here like so. And then we've also got the candy cane to use again. We don't want too many candy canes because this is quite a busy kind of background. The candy canes take up quite a lot of the space, so we don't have to use this candy cane yet. I'm kind of thinking a little bit of the loop might look good up here, but the acetate isn't stretching up to there at the moment, so we can come back and do that later. So I'll put the candy cane off to the side. So now we've got all those in position, we can pick those up with the lid of our stamping tool, and then we can remove the acetate again and ink up this next lot of stamps and put them over the top. And you can see just how easy it is, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different stamps, or 9 if we're using the other candy cane as well. You can see how quickly you can build up your background like this, and you could do this with a sentiment in there as well. You could have put a sentiment in the background too. But you can see how quick it is. Having that piece of acetate, you don't have to worry about precisely placing everything. You can just sort of, you know, put them wherever you feel like they need to go, and then you can pick them up, which is nice. So, because I said I want that candy cane up there, we'll move that magnet so it's not in the way. Maybe let's move that magnet over there. We just want to make sure the card is still in the same place, so that when we, you know, put the stamps on here and pick them back up again, they're going to stamp where we want them to be. So this acetate piece is 6 by 6, so it will cover my entire background. So I can move that up there now, and I'm going to hold this back down again, but not in a place where I'm going to want to put stamps. And I can take that other candy cane from before, I can place it up there because I know I want it to fill in that little gap there. We said about putting the star in this gap last time, so let's put that there. If we could fit the sweet in here maybe, that might look good, putting the sweet just in there. And again, if you know where your sentiment is going to be on all of these and you want to keep them up the same way, you could leave an emptier space if you know you're going to put a topper or a sentiment on there as well. You don't have to completely fill in the background if you don't need to. Let's go with another candy cane, shall we? Perhaps, actually let's do the gingerbread people first, and then we could put a candy cane in. Let's put another sweet there. Then go with another gingerbread man in that gap. We've got the little sort of snowflakey kind of design. We've got the gingerbread lady again. We could maybe have her coming in down here. We've got that candy cane again. We could bring that in around here. And we've got the little jelly tot kind of sweet again as well, so we can put that in there. Then pick them all up again on the lid of your tool, take the magnet off, move the acetate out of the way, make sure the background's going to be held down nicely, ink them all up again, and stamp them all into position. And then we'll only need to do a couple more images just to fill in those last tiny little areas of our background. So let's think about where we need these pieces to be. So I think it's just this bottom area really. So we can make sure the magnets are all at the top there. We can put our piece of acetate back on, maybe hold it down over here, and we just want to fill in these last little areas down here. So I'm thinking a lot more of those little sweets are going to be needed rather than any more gingerbread men or candy canes. Just the little sweets will fill that in quite nicely. So we've got the jelly top, we've got the snowflake, we've got the long sweet there, we've got the round sweet, and then we've also got the little biscuit as well. And the good thing is too, because we're working on the acetate and it's not putting a mark on our cardstock, if we think actually I want to move that there, it's going to fill in the gap better, you can move it and it's not going to have made a mark and then you move it. So it's a really great idea as well. So I'm going to move all of those extra ones off of the lid of my stamping platform, and then I can pick these final little ones up, remove that magnet so that I can take the acetate off, and then stamp those final remaining images at the bottom. And now we have our completed overall pattern stamped background. And if you had have been doing multiples at the same time, you could have had 2 of these or 3 of these already done as well, and it would have saved a lot of time. But when you are doing the multiples, you want to keep this in the same position, bring another piece of card in, line it up on top of where this is, and then stamp them again. And then that's how you can get multiple backgrounds done at the same time. So I'm just going to clean up all my stamps, and then I'll come back and show you how we can add some colour to this design. So because I want to show you these 2 kind of ways of actually colouring or just using your inks and Nuvo products to add some colour to it, I'm going to trim this piece in half, because obviously this doesn't have to be an overall background that is on your card. It can be a little panel that's in the centre of your card as well. It doesn't have to just be an overall piece. You could mount it up and put it in the centre of a card instead of being the overall design too. Maybe you like slightly more clean and simple cards, you don't want the colour all out to the edges, you know, you can do all sorts of whatever you prefer. So first of all, let's go with the coloured pencil option. So for the coloured pencils, I'm using the Nuvo ones. And the coloured pencils are the ones with the triangular barrel to them. But these colours, if you like the colourway that I've coloured it in, these colours will be exactly the same as the colours in their watercolour pencils, if you'd rather do watercolour pencils to colour yours in as well. But if you like the colours, then these are the ones that I'm going to be using. So for the gingerbread people, I'm using Desert Camel and Iced Tea. Then for her little dress, I was using Barely Bisque. For the cheeks on her little face, on the little girl gingerbread man, I was using Cotton Candy. For the red, I was using Fresh Strawberry. For the green, I was using English Ivy. And then for the detail that I did in the background, drawing those little swirls, I was using Natural Stone. So those are the colours that I was using to create mine. And I'll just zoom you in a little bit, and it's literally obviously just colouring in. It's not very difficult to do. I'm not very brilliant at coloured pencils, which is why I tend to stick to alcohol pens, because I tend to just prefer how that turns out you know, when I'm creating my project. But I thought I'd show you coloured pencils, and it also, I feel like coloured pencils kind of lend themselves more towards a slightly vintagey kind of look, and the way I've used the Acorn brown to sort of ink in the edges, I felt like the coloured pencils would work really nicely for that. So I'm literally just using a really light hand so that I don't get too many like scratchy lines of the coloured pencil. Sometimes if you press too hard you can get those sort of scratchy sort of lines in there, but I just want a really soft sort of colouring. So I'm just going to add red to all the candy canes, and then I'm going to add red to some of those diagonal stripes on the little sweets as well, and changing it up in different places for the different ones across the background as well. So you don't have to keep it exactly the same colourways or colouring, you know, in the stripy sort of pattern. So that's all of the red, other than buttons as well actually. I was going to do red buttons on the little gingerbread men, and then I'll do green buttons on the gingerbread lady, I think. And so the next colour will go for the green then. So I want to colour in the little jelly tot kind of things in green. So just really quick colouring. You can see I'm trying to stay inside the lines, but I'm not really being too precise with the colouring. And then I'm just going to colour in these little sort of snowflakes that could be snowflakes, they could be little bits of piped icing, they could be little pom-poms, they can kind of be whatever you want them to be really. And what else did I do? Green. I did the little collar on her dress and her buttons. I did green as well. So we'll do those. Then I'll do the little pink cheeks on the little lady gingerbread person. And then, oh, I didn't actually put these in the original design, the little swirly sweets. I think I will do them red as well actually. Or we could, no, I think I will go red. I'll just do a messy red sort of swirly colouring on those. So we've got those two. Then the biscuits, I used a little bit of each of the 2 colours that I was using for the gingerbread men. So Iced Tea and Desert Camel. I keep wanting to say caramel, but it's camel. Just to colour in the edge of these little biscuits. And then for the icing on the biscuits, just to make it look like it's a white royal icing, like flooded kind of biscuit, I just put a little scribble of that natural stone grey colour on there. And then for the slightly more complicated part, we'll do the colouring of the gingerbread people. So for the gingerbread man, I mostly went with iced tea, and I coloured iced tea first, which is the darker colour. So I'm still going light-handed, but I'm using the darker colour just to add an overall colour to him first. So he kind of looks like he's been in the oven a little bit longer, just to make them look a little bit different. So with the gingerbread men, we're doing them the slightly darker tone. And then I will go back over with the lighter one, which is the desert camel, just to fill in any gaps where I missed, or to, you know, bring all of the colouring together really, fill in any little gaps between pencil lines. So just colour that in, really, really quick and easy. And then for the gingerbread lady, I did the desert camel first. So I coloured her completely in, missing out her dress, because I'm doing her dress in that Burley Bisque colour, to be like a light sort of icing kind of colour. And just colouring in all of these little bits. You can obviously do proper colouring if you want to. I don't really have the strength in my hand to do the proper coloured pencil colouring, where you put like so many layers down and really, you know, fill up the piece with a lot of pencil colour. But if you do love colouring that way, then obviously that would look fantastic as well. And I've missed her head out on this one. But yeah, whatever way you want to colour. Obviously you can use watercolours, you can use watercolour pencils, you can use alcohol pens. I'm just sort of showing you how I created the card that we are sort of recreating. So just fill in all of these gaps. I'm going back over that slightly darker colour with the lighter colour to blend it in a little bit nicer. And then finally that Burley Bisque colour for her dress. So really simple. But then once I'd finished colouring that, I felt like the background looked a bit stark, and I knew I was going to ink around the edges, and I thought, I need to fill it in somehow. So all I did was take that natural stone and just draw some swirls, doing different directions of swirls. And literally just light pressure, so it's a lighter version of the colour, and just drawing some swirls. It doesn't matter if they overlap any of the other images that are on there. It's just like giving a little bit of something visual in the background, so it's not just a white background. So you've got little swirls in there then. Then I came in with the little ink blending brush, just one of the Nuvo Precision ones, with some of that same Acorn brown ink that we were stamping with, and just come in really lightly around the edges. And even though this is a hybrid ink, you can still ink blend with it. Obviously it's not going to be as smooth as if you're using a distress ink or an ink that's designed to blend, but it still works nicely. So that's our little bit of brown inking around there. Then I also did some fine detail with the Iced Ivy Nuvo glitter marker. So what I like to do for this is I put a bit on my desk, and then I get a really fine paintbrush, if I can find it, there it is, and then just pick some of this up and add a little bit of that to some of the areas. So I did it to all of the green areas because this is a green pen. So a little bit on her collar, tiny bits on the buttons. I tried to do like little dotty bits on the sweets, so it kind of looks like a sugar-coated sweet. And then I also did these little sort of snowflakey designs as well, just adding a bit of that gorgeous sparkly glitter marker onto there, and then little dots on the sweet again, and on this sweet, and then a little bit on her collar and the buttons, just to add a little bit of something sparkly in there. And then for the final detail on this background, I took the Gilded Gold Nuvo Vintage Drops and just really carefully did tiny little Nuvo drops onto the background. So just in a few different places, tiny little Nuvo drops. If you don't like trying to control the bottle to get tiny little drops, I have got a trick as well that you can do. I'll do half the background with drops from the bottle, and then I'll show you another way of doing it with the other half of the background, in case you struggle with getting small little drops out of your bottle. So what I do is I take a little scrap of card, squeeze some out onto there, and then just take one of these little ball tools that you can get, the really tiny ones that are designed for like nail art and stuff. I got mine in Poundland years ago, and then you can just do your tiny little drops with this as well, and these will dry flatter because you're not putting as much product onto the background. But you can do tiny little drops this way, and this is also great if you're like trying to put hundreds on something to follow a pattern as well. You don't have to like keep that pressure on the bottle trying to squeeze out tiny little drops. So it's a nice little cheats way of adding tiny little Nuvo drops. And I'll show this up close in a second so that you can see the difference between straight from the bottle and using the tool as well. So this top half is straight from the bottle. You can see they're quite prominent little drops, and then this is using the dotting tool or the embossing tool. So you can kind of see the difference. These are just a little bit more prominent straight from the bottle because you're putting less product on using the embossing tool. So that's one way of adding colour to the background. But if you don't like colouring and you still want to do this kind of idea, you can literally just come back in with your ink pad. So again, the Acorn brown again, picking up some of the ink, inking all around the edges. This is what gives a really nice like vintage kind of look, I think. So ink all around the edges first, and then you can bring a little bit into the centre, a couple of darker areas, and then sort of blending it out. So you've got more of like a vintage look already just by adding that Acorn brown onto there. And then for that extra sparkly aspect that I've shown here, all I did was take the pearled ivory, although if you have the Beryl Swirl you can use that as well. If you have the Beryl Swirl you could just use the Beryl Swirl, whereas I'm going to use pearled ivory and the iced ivy as well. So you want to make sure your mica mists are really well shaken up, and then if you want you can spray it onto your desk and then splatter it with a brush, or because we're just using it with a brush, there's no point in, you know, making it so that you have to go and clean the sprayer out. So I just tip a little bit out, bring in that same tiny little brush from before, and which still had a little bit of green in it, I think, and then just splatter it over the background to give that gorgeous pearly splatter. So this is just the pearl colour. So you could definitely leave it like this if you want a subtle monochrome vintage kind of a look, just with the pearl splatter on there. Or if you want to bring in some green as well, on my one I just mixed some of the glitter marker in with that to make it more loose and watery for splattering, but you can put a little bit of water with it as well if you'd rather. I just had some of the mica mist left on my desk, so I just mixed it together, and then you can splatter that kind of colouring onto there as well, as much or as little as you want, to give a different kind of effect. So it's a really nice sort of technique to be able to do that doesn't require you to be someone who likes colouring. You can just add a little bit of ink blending and some splattering on there to make it the perfect sort of look for you, and you know, fit in with the kind of things that you like to do as well. So I really hope you enjoyed that tutorial video showing you how to create an overall stamped background with all of these gorgeous images from the Whimsical Wonderland Tonic Craft Kit, which is kit number 69, using all of the gorgeous stamps from that set and some of the Nuvo items as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!